Okay, I hope this is proving worthwhile for you. As I try to give you an overview, I'm not sure if that's the right word for it, but maybe a more complete view of the all the sort of mindsets, elements involved in the behaviors of an impressionist type painter. So I call this habits of the highly effective impressionist. As you know, when I say impressionist, I don't simply mean broken color. I don't, in fact, necessarily at all mean broken color and bad drawing. But so many people take it for that. So if you haven't seen my videos before and you're watching this one, I want to make that really clear. So we've already talked about the innocent eye, the visual, not actual. We've talked about goals in the start. And what was we missed? I missed one in there. Let's see if I can find it for you in 2 seconds. What was that? Let's see. I like to make that list every time. The innocent eye, goals in the start, relational thinking. Okay, so those are just underlying thinking that you already probably know everything about. Certainly, it's common knowledge. The question is how is it applied, and what are the habits that we participate in on a regular basis that make us effective? If that's our goal, if our goal is to paint the visual impression, what are the habits that we get involved in and what routinely do, maybe more than other people working in other ways. But before we start, I want to thank Chaka and David D for your really nice donations. Thank you, David, for that ongoing nature of that one. That's really appreciated. And I understand, Chaka, that you're. I've been that guy. You're donating from what you can, and I really encourage people to just keep that sort of thing is just a nice way of saying thanks. So I really appreciate that. You know what I mean. All right, so I've been that guy. So in case you were wondering, but Chaka S. All right, so let's just jump over here if I can get our slideshow running to the use of the eyes, and we're talking now about sort of everything we're talking about is about everyday behavior of a painter, right? The routines, things you do all the time. And the use of the eyes is no exception. And I'm not, again, going to be able to be definitive. I just put these together. I can't spend my life trying to create this meaning to think up every little thing, although I try to improve it every time I come around these subjects again. But the use of the eyes, as I said before, by the way, these weren't laid out for me one thing after another. I'm just doing it for you so that it's been done once. So I'm trying to get people to understand the mindset of the Boston School type thinking, that kind of a painter, which, in certain ways, everybody was gradually becoming the Zorns, the Sargents, the Soroyas. There are several things you want to do if you're the Boston School sort, the sort I am. I just have found there are some things you want to be continually doing. One is the use of the eyes, and there's a variety of ways in which we use our eyes. I've talked about blurring before, so let me get the list up here and let's have a look at that. So blurring the eyes, what do we do that for? You can see here in the statement it says to see the order of value contrasts. All right, so if you're looking at me and you see a dark meeting a light with a sharp edge creating a bright effect somewhere, if you blur your eyes, you'll gradually see that a whole bunch of things will disappear, and that one or one part like that will really come forward, right? Will really still be there. I say come forward. It's not accurate in that it's physically coming forward. Doesn't have to be a forward thing. It could be the window behind me or the light behind me. So it's not coming forward in that way. But in terms of the blur to the eye, you see it's first. It's got a projective hegemony, for lack of a better word. It's in front. Visually, if you blur your eyes, you'll see it's first. And that first is a matter of importance. It's effect importance, okay? So we blur our eyes to see who those guys are. And there's a second thing we do. We blur our eyes to see what camp a particular value stays in. If you're talking about setting up at the beginning of your painting, the darkest dark and lightest lights, where does this middle tone land? And you blur your eyes and you'll gradually see that it will tend, at some point, it'll tend to take a side. It'll grab on and become more part of the darks or more part of the lights. And that's true of the thing just in the area it's in as well. It doesn't have to be the darkest dark and lightest light, but just in the neighborhood it's in. If you blur your eyes, you'll see who it's more proximal to, it tends to join, tends to be unified with as a value. So that's another use of the blurred eye. And the third one is just because it gets you the sense of the idea of classification of values. And that one I should have, I'm not using pictures today, but I could have brought pictures in to show you that. But the idea is values do come in, what shall we say, in rather as sets. I mean, Sargent's conversation about 3 to 5 values, major values. Well, major value sets, right? There's a whole bunch of values of such and such, so the whole thing is permeated by some middle tone. And there's a whole bunch of darks all floating around, and they sit in a different place. And the blurry of the eye is a factor, is helpful in that. It's not the key thing by any means. That's really sort of a mentality, trying to see unity, taking in the thing as a whole. And see, once you see a dark, you try to picture, you try to get yourself to be aware of all the rest of the set. So that's a little bit of a different way of looking. That gets you to the idea of seeing big, which means you have to take in the thing as a whole, which we talk about all the time. So then using the eyes in a variety of ways. Now, so I mentioned blurring, but when you're doing color, you don't blur. You blur, you kill the color, right? So whenever you're doing anything related to color, you keep your eyes big. As my friend Gary Hoffman would say, how you can tell an impressionist? And he pops his eyes as he's staring at me, So using the eyes to see color requires you to use them in a big way, in a full way. But to see color, you want to also look to the sides. The sides of your eyes see color better, so to speak. But nevertheless, even if they didn't, the color you're looking at in nature has to look right, whether you're looking at it in your painting or whether you're not looking at it. And so when you're looking at a thing in nature, you're trying to understand how it performs when you're looking right at it and how it performs when you're looking over here, and make sure your painting is doing the same thing, okay? So looking at two things at once is one of those classic things. Have in mind that when you're trying to understand what kind of a yellow this is on this cup here, what kind of a yellow that is, you can look at it hard if you like. That's another thing to do. Look hard at the thing you're not painting, and you'll start seeing its relationship to other things. And at any point, you can look at two things simultaneously. If you have two yellows in particular, look at two of them at once, and your brain will actually start assessing them as a set. They'll say, and you'll start noticing that one of them is more chromatic, that the other is more green. One's more green while the other's more red, or so whatever more warm. So, but looking at two things at once is a thing you have to cultivate. I mentioned here looking out of the corner of your eye, but that's very much the awareness of what a color is when you're not looking right at it, and it's richer if you do that. It's very difficult to get the quality of the note. I've told you that story, but by staring at it, it's amazing how your eyes will lie to you by matching that note. Now you can say, certain people are telling me this is a very important method. You just copy something and hold it next to it, and it's going to be that. Nature isn't like that. There's a whole bunch of notes you can't do that with and have them do the same thing. So I'm suggesting that what you're actually talking about out there is, because it's all relational, is that oh man, what did I just do? I just lost my train of thought on that one. That's one of the things I'm doing when I pick up a thought out of the corner of my brain. I apologize, I lost track of that. So, but the idea of looking at scans is very like that. Don't look hard at it. Oh, I remember where I was going. I was going to tell you the story about when the first time I was finally able to see what Gamble was doing, that he would come into my painting and correct a note. And I would think, okay, and he had made a few marks, but he hadn't painted the area. So I took note of what he said, and then I looked at it and I started painting on it. By the time he came back the next time, it was all wrong again. And after he'd done that 3 or 4 times, I realized that he was doing something different with his eyes. I knew it had to be something the way he was looking at it. But why would he come up with the same color every time? And I was coming up with a new color. I tried an orange version, a green, or neutral version. I tried everything in the world, and every one of them looked right to me. And Gamble would change it back to the one he had made. And now there are only 2 factors in doing that. But one is, if you're looking at 2 notes, you'll have corrected it to another note, right? So I obviously wasn't very, 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 very astute relationally. But the other one is, and I couldn't sort this out. I couldn't see the note he was hitting. And finally, in frustration, I was about to go out to lunch, and I was just walking by the painting, and out of the corner of my eye, as I was flying by there was his color note. Now, what was that, right? So there's something There's something in the way we look that's so hugely important. But so numbers of these ways of using your eye, but that was clearly just simply a case of he was using his eyes in a different way from the way I was. So think about that as, I refer to that as looking askance, not looking so hard at it, but taking it in as a function of the whole thing and so on. But you're going to find a whole bunch of other ways. You've probably already used your eyes in a bunch of other ways if you're trying to get to the truth of the color relation. None of this means anything if you're a sight sizer. If you think this color is going to match, that color is going to match. It only means something if you're a relational painter. All these things I'm talking about, actually. I shouldn't say they only do, but this is the focus that we have. So now using your eyes in multiple ways, that's what we're talking about. Use your eyes in lots of ways. I tell students from time to time, if you want to paint like me, you've got to look like me. And that's all I mean by it. I mean, you got to look in many different ways. You got to look at the thing as a whole. You got to look at the thing next to it. You got to look at the thing while you're looking at another thing, and so on, and whatever. And there's a lot of different things. You'll have to blur your eyes. You'll have to, pop your eyes, whatever. But there's so many ways. But I'm saying you have to look like I look, right? You have to look in those many ways. Don't underestimate them. Try things. I mean, it's an adventure. And it's an adventure after truth. So it's not like the thing's going to go away on you somewhere. But the point I want to make here is that when you're looking at nature and you're using your eyes in such and such a way, and you see what it starts doing when you use your eyes like this, and you look at your painting and use your eyes in the same way, and it doesn't do that, you have a problem. So you go to your painting and you have to be able to look at your painting using your eyes in the same way, like when you're looking hard at a particular note, as the other one do the same thing as that happens when you look at that hard at that note in nature. Follow that though. That's huge in the fundamental thing underlying the way we work. You have to. Your goal is to get your eyes to participate in exactly the same way on your canvas as they do. That's the viewer's eyes to participate. And there's a whole multitude of relationships and that have to be corrected. And some of them are easier to see this way, like blurring your eyes, others in another way. But however you do it, when you're correcting nature, when you're looking at nature and getting a concept, getting an idea of how these relationships feel, you have to work until when you're looking the same way on your painting, it does the same thing. It creates the same effect to your eye. It's really hugely the secret to what we're doing is you can't think that there's something different happening with your eyes here versus there. Okay. So, and remember, these are all about things you need to understand. But the blurring of the eyes is. I'm sorry, you need to understand, but I'm talking about just in the use of the eyes. You need to understand that it's massively huge, that you'd be able to do all these things, but it's hugely important also that they perform in the same way on your canvas. And then I want to mention this just as in flying by. It was something I probably should have brought up before, but it's this idea of maintaining simultaneity of focus, maintaining simultaneous focus. We don't use a lens mentality. We don't look hard at something and the rest of it becomes fuzzy around here. Our goal at the end of the day is for the viewer to enjoy the painting without a lens, without an interpretation through a lens. That's not what we mean by interpretation. We don't mean a camera lens by interpretation. It doesn't mean a person couldn't do that, by the way. But when you get all done, that'll probably be the dominating thing about the picture. It'll be it looks like it was painted through a lens. Okay? And if that's what you want, that's fine. But it will disturb other kinds of, things you may have thought were the primary efforts. A lot of times people, by the way, don't know how to focus on primary. What's your primary mission? When you look at this thing, what is that one thing that you're trying to convey, right? What are you trying to get across that you found so magical? And various things like blurring your eyes funny and stuff like that will dominate what you thought you were trying to talk about. So, but maintain a simultaneity of focus. That just simply means you treat the screen as if everything were just like it is in nature, where if you just as you're looking at a general area, you can just if you don't look in, you can see that everything is in similar focus. There's no zooming going on. And of course, if you have perfectly good eyes, that's easy to understand. But if you use those eyes to take the fovea and just go looking at this and looking at this and looking at this, that's the other thing we don't do. So one is the focus to the blurry edges, and the other one is zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. We want to get them all into the same field. Okay. So I just refer to that as a visual field. Okay, so I'll stop at that for today. And thank you again, David, for that ongoing contribution. And I hadn't realized you were doing that, and I really appreciate it. And Chaka for that first time and wonderful, wonderful gift. Thank you very much. All right. Don't forget to subscribe and share and like and all those wonderful things and make comments. I haven't been able to find comments before I started this today to see how you were enjoying this or not, but I am looking forward to your comments. And let me know if there's something in specific that I'm talking about here that you want me to expand on. I'll try to do that. Maybe as an appendix to all this stuff. All right. Good. See you in the next one.